It's finally reached my doorstep. The big slowdown that folks are calling the Airbnb bust, the just general slowdown in the short-term rental industry since the end of COVID. And so today I'm going to be telling you guys why I think it's happening, especially in my particular market in the Smokies, and the changes and adjustments that I'm making so that my business can continue to thrive and we can continue to make money with Airbnb and VRBO. So be sure to hit that like button down below because I think this is going to be one of the more consequential videos that I put out this year. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Airbnb ABCs. Like I said, things are changing rapidly in the short-term rental market. It seems like just 6 to 8 months ago, we were just banging away. You could get bookings, no problem. Everything was good. Your rates were super duper high. But in the last, I would say probably 6 months, things have been slowing down. There are typically slow seasons in any market. In the Smokies market, you're looking at January and February, a little bit slower. The spring break season was bumping. This year, it was just like any other year. May is usually slow, but then towards the end of May, you should start to see June and July really pick up. But for me and a lot of other folks out there on the internet that I've talked to, things just were not picking up.
Would you say it's time for everyone to panic? Yes, I would, Kent.
Overall, people have been noticing that bookings are down, the lead time for bookings are down, and again, I've seen this from multiple sources, from multiple owners groups, so it's not just my perspective because usually I'm pretty bullish. Usually my stuff is booking up pretty far in advance, and so it was definitely a wake-up call for me to really take a look at my listings, take a look at what I'm doing with my listings, my pricing, my minimum stays, and other things that contribute to getting booked and staying booked. And then it also got me thinking about why this is happening, why it's happening to so many other folks, why it's happening to me, and why it may be happening to you. And there is a lot of reasons for that. The economy is not in great shape. No matter what people say, the people are really starting to feel the pinch of inflation going on. And in my opinion, I don't think that most folks can afford a nice vacation, a week-long vacation, a 4 or 5 night stay, and they may not be able to afford a vacation like a week on the beach versus maybe 3 days in the Smokies. And I'm going to tell you guys why. And I'm going to give you guys a little personal information here, so I'd appreciate it again if you would hit the like button, subscribe so that people see this video. You know, the more that you do that, the more people see it, because I live basically a dual life.
Don't have one family, have a second family all the way across the country.
It's not that I have 2 families, it's that I have a dual financial life, essentially. What that means is all the stuff that I talked with you guys about here with all these Airbnb investments, and then my other investments. I have a stock market, a general stock market account. I can't think of the name right off the top of my head. I have a retirement account. I have another YouTube channel where we mess around with firearms and outdoor stuff. But all of those things, all of these business things, all of my investments, anything else, I keep that separate. And I, for the most part, do not spend any money off of that. So my entire life, my day-to-day, food, gas, utilities, all that comes from my W-2 employment. And for me, I make right around $100,000 every single year. For some of you guys out there, it's going to be a lot of money. For a lot of people, that's not going to be a lot of money. And I've said that probably in the short-term rental investor community, I am probably solidly in the bottom 50% of the W-2 income earners. But the thing is that $100,000 income puts me in the top 15 to 20% of earners throughout the United States, and it is larger than the average household income that takes into account all of the income that anyone makes in a household. And so when you look at it like that and you look at what our core customer is, and our core customer is the middle class vacationer. They're the people that are taking one of their 2 weeks of vacation. They're going to the beach, they're going to the Smokies, and those people have been absolutely squeezed and just, they cannot afford hardly anything beyond their basic expenses. You see, during COVID, everything went up in price, but people weren't traveling. People weren't spending money on anything because they weren't going out, because they weren't traveling, they weren't doing anything. Also, the government was pumping thousands, maybe even tens of thousands, depending on how many kids that you have, of dollars into people's pockets with wildly predictable inflation that was to come later and really, reap the whirlwind of this whole COVID thing. And so during that time, people couldn't travel. They may not have been able to travel internationally, and they had some money in their pockets, so they went out and traveled. That allowed us to really run the rates up on these things. And I don't think anyone was gouging anyone. We were just reacting to the market, and you could stay booked at 6 to 8 weeks out with higher rates. The thing is that now this inflation has come home to roost. It has really nailed the middle income earners, the middle class. And along with that, interest rates are up. So if you have auto loans, credit cards, new mortgage, things like that, you are paying far more than you were paying just a short 3 or 4 years ago for the same type of stuff. And for me, on $100,000, it has definitely been able to be felt in a big way. The pinch is big, and so when I look at me as as earning more than the typical household that's going to go on vacation, I can see where people are not going to be able to afford the rates that we were getting in 2021, 22, and so things have to calm down. And what I'm going to talk about today is what I am doing as far as pricing, minimum stays, and barriers to entry, and making my attractive look as best as I can so that we can still try to capture those bookings from the folks that can't afford to go out and take their summer vacation this year. Now, before we get into any of the pricing or minimum stay strategies or anything like that, the number one thing you need to have is an absolutely baller listing. Like, if your listing is not the best that it possibly can, then you are not going to be able to capture the people that you want. You want to be the prettiest girl at the dance, and you just have to at this point. There's no more room for just putting whatever onto Airbnb, VRBO with crappy selfie pictures, with a crappy title, with a crappy description, not filling out your amenities. You have to do all of those things if you want to set yourself apart. Even if there's a lot of rentals in your market, you can be the best. You can be in the top 10 or 25%. Those people are going to get rented. You need to have the best cover picture that you possibly can. These folks are going to be scrolling quickly. You need to have that stops on that cover picture because it has a wow factor of some sort. Not every property is going to have an obvious wow factor thing. You need to find the best angle, the best picture that you possibly can, and roll with that. Your title needs to be great. It needs to catch people's attention. It needs to have something in there about what your property is, something that it's near, if there's a special going on, whatever it is, that's for you to write, that's for you to figure out. And for your description, you need to make that very clear. You need to have in there exactly what makes your place set apart right at the beginning so that when people click on your listing, they can see exactly what it is. You have a hot tub, you have king beds, you're close to Gatlinburg, you're close to Pigeon Forge, or steps from the beach, et cetera, et cetera. They need, once they've clicked on that picture, they're in your listing, you need to catch their eye right away because you're only going to have seconds in order to really grab these people's attention. This is the TikTok era we're living in. 60-second videos are starting to get long. Heck, this one, if you're this far in, you're probably in the top 1% of video watchers. I am going to do a full video on how to create a baller listing in the future. I've been wanting to do that. I've been kind of putting it off, but it needs to be done. Your listing needs to be tight. If you need to hire things out, if you need to use ChatGPT, use those things. But the biggest thing that you can do once your listing is excellent is make it easier to book. Now, the biggest things are going to be price reductions, guys. You are going to have to look at your competitors. You're going to have to look around at what other people are renting their places for, and you are going to probably have to get in line at least or below your competitors in order to get booked. And unless you have something that's really special, you have a really neat place that's just completely different in a good way, not completely different in a bad way, than your competitors, you're going to at least need to be in line with their prices. And if you want to get those bookings, you need them now, especially if you're really close in. You're probably gonna have to shoot under so that your price is what sells. Because guys, in the end, no matter what the economic cycle, price is going to sell. Sometimes demand is so high that it makes supply low, and so you can charge more. Right now, supply is getting higher, demand is getting lower, or supply is staying the same, demand is getting lower, and so your prices need to come down. One thing that you guys can do that may not be lowering your nightly rate is you lower your minimum stay, because the shorter minimum stay is in effect a lower price. Because if your rates are $300 a night and you have a 3-night minimum stay, that's a minimum of $900 plus all the fees plus all of that stuff. If you have a 2-night minimum stay, now that minimum price is $600. So somebody may be able to squeeze that in, or if they can't afford 3 or 4 or 5 nights, they can afford 2 nights. That gets your place booked. And if you book, all of your, let's say you have 10 nights and you can book them all at $250, you're going to make more money than if you book just a couple of them at $300. And that is a strategy for you to get booked and stay booked, keep your cleaners in business, keep them going, because lower minimum stays is effectively a minimum price. And something else to think about on your prices is when you have a rate of 150 or 200 or whatever, and you're like, wow, that's really low, you need to look at the total price that the guest is paying. I know that that's not your problem, right? The taxes, the fees that the booking platforms charge, not your problem, right? Until you can't get booked. So when you're looking at that, every single night is probably going to have $100 to $150 of additional fees. So your $100 night might actually cost the customer $250 to $300. And while that may not be your problem, it becomes your problem if you are not getting booked. Lastly, guys, you need to eliminate any fee or any junk fees or anything else that is getting in the way of your customers booking. This is going to be mandatory insurance that they have to purchase, such as like the VRBO protection plan, where they have to pay $59 or $89 to get X amount of coverage or pay the coverage amount. I just use the VRBO's, virtual security deposit, where you can type in a number. They don't actually take that from them until, you submit a request. But I don't put down anything that they have to pay in addition to the nightly rate, the taxes, the fees, the cleaning fee. That's already going to be quite a bit. I don't do hard security deposits. Like, some people do hard security deposits, $500, $1,000, $1,500. They may not have that money. They may be stretched. And it's not my responsibility to say that you maybe shouldn't take a vacation if you're within, $500 of your total amount. But that could be the difference between you getting that booking and not getting that booking. Another big thing with this is the rental agreement that a lot of people are using. If you are booking on VRBO or Airbnb, there's already certain rules and regulations that are in effect for guests and hosts. They may not be as stringent as your rental agreement is, but that is just an additional hassle for the guests, for them to be like, what is this? Why do I have to do this? I've already agreed to the terms of service of Airbnb and VRBO, and it's an additional hassle for you to hassle them to get it, enforce things if they don't do it. And again, it's just another thing where if people have a lot of supply to choose from, there's a lot of identical or very similar properties. Me as a guest who is a good guest who's going to come there, we're going to treat your place with respect. If there's two identical properties and I have to jump through a bunch of different hoops, like an extra security deposit, sign a rental agreement, and do a bunch of baloney that I just want to get on Airbnb and book the thing, I am going to book the property that is the least amount of hoops to jump through. Now, if you guys are doing direct bookings, that is an area where I would, do the other thing. You do maybe a rental agreement, maybe a security deposit, because you don't have the backing of Airbnb and VRBO. But if they're coming through the platform at this point in the market cycle where we're down, I would 100% not do the rental agreements, not do a hard security deposit, as I have done since we started this whole journey for me, and I haven't had any problems doing any of that. So I don't think that there's any reason to panic.
Would you say it's time for our viewers to crack each other's heads open and feast on the goo inside? Yes, I would, Ken.
But I do think that there is a lot of reason to actively get into your listings, actively look at what's going on. Don't just sit there and fret and say, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything. Get on these owners groups that are local to your area. Get on these nationwide owners groups. Look up the short-term shop, short-term rental, long-term wealth. Look up the short-term rental listing advice Facebook forums. They can give you a wealth of information about what to do with your short-term rental listings so that you can continue to grab those bookings. But the biggest thing is you all need to think about your core customer, need to think about that person that's making $50,000 or $70,000, or that family that's making $50,000 or $70,000 as a household income, and how they are going to be able to rent your place with inflation through the roof, with interest rates through the roof, with savings rates going down, and just not having as much income and as much disposable income as they probably had during the last 2 or 3 years. Not to mention the fact that people do have more options. The people that are are more well-to-do, or just have more disposable income, those folks are now more easily traveling abroad, traveling to different destinations that during COVID they would not have been able to do because of different restrictions with the virus spread prevention techniques that were in place at the time. Click on the links that are on the screen right now. They're going to tell you guys all about the types of cabins that we buy in the Smoky Mountain market. They're going to tell you about how we manage them from afar, and all the trials and tribulations of running a VRBO at Airbnb short-term rental business. It is going to be harder to run one of these in the next year or so than it has been during the last couple of years, but this is still my number one investment. I am still very much all in on Airbnb and VRBO and short-term rentals. They're fun. There's a lot of money to be made in them from cash flow, from equity, and I went from all long-term rentals to all short-term rentals, and I don't regret that for 1 second. So guys, if you like this video, like button for me, subscribe down below so you don't miss anything I put out. I appreciate you guys watching today. I'll see you in the next one.